Wanted to make a quick video about the repair of the rotating display on a Wolf L series oven. I recently obtained this one for a really good price, and it was manufactured in 2006. From my research online, I could see that a bunch of these seem to have the same issue, but I couldn't find anyone really talking about repairing it. So just decided to hop right into it, see if I could repair it cheaply, if at all. I know there were assemblies available for sale used on eBay for about 130 bucks, but I figured it wasn't really worth that just to have a little motor rotating it when you can still do it manually. But fortunately didn't have to spend that to do this. Ignore the mess. I'm converting from a freestanding range into a built-in oven cooktop, so I'm waiting on some pieces to complete the more built-in look. But for now, just needed it to be functional. So hopping into what I did there, and there will be a link in the description with a little more information and a picture of the motor disassembled. But there's an access panel on the forward half of the top part of the chassis, and you could just pop off the 7 to 8 sheet metal screws, lift the panel up, and then the motor is basically right there. You just have to reach in a little bit to undo the connector, which be careful when you do because you don't want to tear anything off the circuit board. So once you do, it's 2 screws to pull out the motor after you disconnect that connector, and most of it is contained within the motor, most of the gears and everything. There's only one gear outside of it, and then the other gear attached to the motor itself. There's a lid that's very difficult to remove. I recommend getting a very large, sturdy pair of pliers to bend the clips up. I ended up really having to mangle the lid off and then hammer it back flat and put it back into place. So I think that made my reassembly and reinstallation much more difficult because I couldn't tighten the screws too much, or else it would put too much stress on the gear train inside and it wouldn't turn. But as you could see, I did that repair about a month ago, and I installed the oven like this a couple weeks ago, and it's been working great ever since. Seems to rotate at the right speed. Opens and closes just fine. The issue ended up being not broken plastic gears, but the plastic little drive shaft attached to the magnet was detached from the magnet. It looks like it was they used adhesive, a very thin layer, and just over time the adhesive had degraded. I couldn't even find a whole lot of residue from it, so it was a very thin application. I used a pretty healthy splattering of plastic bonder to bond the magnet back to the plastic. Seemed to work great. Reassembled it. Again, yeah, the reassembly was probably the most difficult part there because of the hack job I did opening it up. But it's been working great. I did find what looks to be an identical motor on Alibaba for 17 bucks. The difference is being that it does not have a sprocket at the end of the motor, so you'd have to take the gear off of this one and put it on the new one. Let me tell you, it's really on this one. I could not get it off myself, so your success may vary in that. And then the connector is also different. It's still a 5-wire plug, but it's not the same plug that's on the original, so you'd have to do some wire splicing there and probably some guesswork as well to figure out which wire should be mapped to which pin. But yeah, it's been working great. No complaints. My only word of caution is if you get this working, definitely don't open and close the display manually, because I could definitely see the plastic gears breaking from that. I have a feeling that adhesive was broken by somebody pushing and opening the display manually. I think that was probably too much torque for it to handle, and after age and exposure to heat, since it is an oven after all, just kind of degraded it. So if you have any questions or anything, feel free to comment. I'll get back to you. You can take a look at the link in the description for a little more information and a picture of that disassembled motor. I also, in that picture, have circled the part that I had to re-glue. Thanks for taking a look. I hope this was helpful.